Hey everyone, it's Kai, and today's video is going to be more for the new players who are starting off their Vanguard journey with Overdress. They've seen the anime and they're like, wow, this is cool. How do I start? We have 5 start decks that are designed for the new players. Which one do I choose, right? And the answer is you just pick all 5. You get all 5 of them, but maybe you want to decide which one you want to start off with, which one you want to play first, right? Like, they're so cheap, they're only 333 yen or 4 USD. I'm gonna get them all, but which one do I start off with? So we're gonna go through every single start deck. We'll talk about what the start deck does, how it looks, and basically the most important part that I think that you'll get from the start deck is what you learn from it, right? Because all these start decks compress big ideas in Vanguard, important ideas, compresses them into a very simple format for you to understand. And then when you learn that skill and take it onto the later parts of your Vanguard journey, where you're playing in different formats, maybe in a more advanced format, or you're building your own deck, then you will kind of harness those skills that you've at least learned from the start deck to be able to enhance your play more. So let's start off with the main character, and that is Yu Kondo start deck, Holy Dragon. This is the Dragon Empire start deck. It's just about dragons and dragon dances, all right? Dragon dances, so you can see dragons and blazing maiden units, all right? So you can see here, this is the aesthetics of the clan. Pretty cool. It's kind of Asianish as well. So if you like that, I guess this is perfect. Asians, dragons, and eggs, and like dances, right? Perfect. This is for you. The main key thing about this star deck is the new overdress mechanic. You have cards that the new overdress mechanic is basically just you put a card over the other on top of another card, and this is the only one that has it so far, right? But the other thing that you also learn from this start deck is that it's one of the few ones that actually interact with your opponent, and you retire opponent's units. Of course, the only other one that kind of does that with the start deck is Brandt Gate, and they have their prison mechanic, but we'll get into that later. But this is the only one that kind of removes them permanently from the game, and it's something that you should probably learn early on when you start the game, because previously when we had 24 clans in Vanguard, not every clan interacted with your opponent. A lot of them just did their own thing, and a lot of people just didn't have the skill to actually identify what are the more important cards in your opponent's zones and then just get rid of the key cards, right? So this actually teaches you interacting with your opponent, identifying, well, like making you more understand your opponent's deck as well as your own in order to be able to destroy their game plan the most effective way, right? This deck doesn't have many multi-attacks. That comes in like the booster packs, but it basically has 3 attacks, so it's very simple. You don't have to think of the attack order, and they get big, and that's kind of it. So kind of versatile. I'm not very advanced, probably the easiest start deck to start off with because there's no imbalances with anything. It's just a very overall balanced start deck with the retire mechanic, so it lets you interact with your opponent. When you upgrade this deck with a booster pack, it's one of the decks that probably will change a lot, because the cards that you get can really change the playstyle of this entire deck. So keep that in mind. But if you're just a new starter, you like the main character, then this is just a perfect deck for you, right? You like Overdress, you like dragons, bam, perfect. Here's kind of what the deck looks like, the entire start deck. As you can see, you saw a bunch of these cards at all. This is the Overdress card. You can see it's got a weird border, and you basically just, you place it over the Trickstar unit, and then it has a Soul Blast 2 retire effect, and it also gets power. So overall, it's pretty nice. And this is just the cute little Trickstar you get, and it can't be affected by, well, can't be chosen for your opponent's effect. So you can kind of like rush with this card as well. You can place it down early and not fear it from getting it removed from play. So yeah, it's got these little nifty tricks that you can do with the deck to kind of make your plays that much better, right? Let's dive into the Danji Momiyama start deck, and this is called Titan Tiger, and it's featuring the Dark States Nation. Now, it says that it features a lot of demon units, and you're supposed to accumulate your power for a decisive shot. But we'll dive into that soon, but let's take a look at the aesthetics. There's a stadium, it's football, there's the demons, there's the cheerleaders, and there's this person with a bazooka. So pretty crazy. Well, not a bazooka, I guess. It's a missile launcher, right? Missile launcher. Well, it's a t-shirt launcher, maybe, right? This is the deck itself. You probably don't understand that, so let's just dive into what it looks like. So this entire deck revolves around this specific card, and that is Bruce, your main grade 3. And he has this effect where at the beginning of your ride phase, you go into a state called Final Rush. Now, when you first ride this card, you already passed the ride phase, so you can't go into Final Rush, but during the next turn, you will go into Final Rush. So this deck is all about going to Final Rush, and that is basically like turn 4, or at least the second grade 3 turn, right? The second turn of your grade 3. Now, this Final Rush is just like a state where everything else gets stronger. So like this card normally is just a 10k buddy, but when you're in Final Rush, he gets power plus 5,000. So this deck just works when you're in Final Rush, and it kind of doesn't really do anything special when it's not. Now, how does this really translate into the big leagues, right? What are you learning from this? Well, in the future, when you're playing maybe another deck, or you're building your own decks, you likely build around something like a win condition. If it's like a combo deck, you know, you have a specific combo that you really want to abuse, and then once you abuse that, you start winning, or you just win full stop. And before you do that, you have to play defensively, right? You have to try to navigate your way to that combo in the best shape possible in order to abuse that combo with like the best cards that you have. This deck is pretty much that, but just way simpler, because you don't have a combo. It's just survive until turn 4, and then you start counterattacking with big power cards, right? But if you dump a lot of your cards early, right? Let's say you dump this Acrobat Presenter, you're gonna face problems later, because this card soul charges 1 when you have a Bruce, but it also soul charges another one when you're in Final Rush. So is a soul charge true? If you lose this card early, if you're forced to guard with it early, or you commit it down and attack with it, and you lose it, suddenly you can't redo another Final Rush, right? So you have to go, okay, how do I get to turn 4? And then, you know, I might want to keep my Acrobat Presenter, I might want to keep another card, and then from there on, then I can start, you know, I have a game plan going after that. So that's basically this translating into, you know, in the future, another thing, right? So this will teach you how to navigate to that situation, that turn 4, that win condition, and with like a limited amount of cards. You're not going to start with the same cards every game. You do have a ride deck now, which means you won't miss ride, but you know, the cards that go into your hand aren't going to be the same. So sometimes you get some great defensive cards, sometimes you just won't. You won't get anything, and you're going to have to decide, do I take all this damage? Maybe that's the way for me to win later on, or do I actually just commit the guards now and then, you know, stay on low damage, but then my Final Rush turns won't be that amazing, right? That's the entire game plan. They'll translate in the future when you're playing like building combo decks, and you're managing your hand in order to get to your combo in the best shape possible. The next one we have is the Toya Ebata start deck, and you would have seen this guy as well with Danji in the anime, the first episode. He is from Keter Sanctuary. His start deck is called Apex Ruler. It features a lot of Knight and Angel units. If you've played United Sanctuary before, this is basically United Sanctuary. Dark States is like the Dark Zone, and Dragon Empire is just Dragon Empire. You have to lead your powerful units into victory. This is not very... doesn't explain much. This is the aesthetics, you know, you got the Knights, Angels, and more Knights. Look how cool Bastion is, man. He's just buff horseman. And this is the deck itself. You can see from this that there are a lot of grade 3s, and this is kind of what you have to learn with this deck. So here's the deck itself. You can take a look at it. This deck forces you to play aggressive early on, right? A lot of these previous decks that we've seen so far, you don't have to play aggressive, especially the Dark States one. You can play very lame until your specific Final Rush turn. This one kind of forces you to play very aggressive early on. You want to commit cards early because you just don't have as much defensive power as the other decks in order to play any sort of long grind game. But the thing is that these cards also do give you the ability to hit specific magic numbers, right? This will teach you magic numbers. Bastion gives your grade 3 units plus 2k, so they become 15. 15 onto a 10k lets you bully the 10k, lets you hit those magic numbers, makes them have to discard 2 cards, or, you know, have to take a damage. So playing that early aggression is what you will learn from this deck, and like things like Rooks lets you get a free card, and just also the attack order is very important because Bastion does enable you to get 4 attacks by just, you know, attacking with a rearguard first, and then if you trigger a grade 3, you can stand that rearguard to get more attacks. So this will kind of force you to play the very aggressive game. And, you know, sometimes when you call something off the top of the deck, if it's like a trigger, then you go, okay, where do I put it? Do I boost with it? Do I just place it somewhere else? Do I push it up and attack and boost and then boost it with something else, etc. So it's gonna make you think how to play the aggressive early game, which is an important tool that you will need when playing aggressive early game decks in the future, where, you know, some decks are just so strong at the late game that you really need to win in the early game. And although this deck kind of tailors that entire concept on winning the early game by being aggressive, some decks you just don't have an early game deck, like the Dark States one. You don't really have much of an early game potential, but you still have to play aggressive, right, in certain matchups. So this will kind of teach you to play aggressive, teach you some positioning, early game positioning, and how that translates into later on. And then also it has that nice little buff where it gives your units power, so you can kind of hit those numbers easier, right? A very aggressive deck though. The next one is the Stoicheia one, and this is for Megumi Okra, and it's called Sylvan King. It features a lot of beast units, and you make consecutive attacks with comrades. So this is actually the most multi-attack deck that you will get out of all the start decks. You can attack like maximum, I think, 6 times, and it features one of the girls, right? So cool stuff. It also features a lot of cute animals, right? So if you like, this is the bobble axe that people have been talking about. You've got these nice, cute little carbuncles, and here's a deer, I guess, or a stag, you know. You see that this deck doesn't have many grade 3s. You only have Magnolia, but that's okay, remember, because of the start deck, ride deck, sorry. So you will always be able to ride whatever you want. Now, you might be surprised to hear, but what you learn from this deck is not how to multi-attack, because it is. You do learn how to multi-attack. You do learn, like, you know, how to position your attack so that you don't get stuffed over by, like, well, you always get stuffed over by over triggers, but you get stuffed over less by triggers, your opponent checking a damage trigger, etc. But the most important thing you learn from this deck is the most boringest thing, but also the most important thing in Vanguard, and that is resource management, right? Resource management, reading the spread. Now, there's no spreadsheets, but if you look at this deck, they do use a lot of soul. Like, this uses soul, this uses 2 soul. This uses a counterblast and a soul. So you're gonna realize that you're gonna run out of soul, and that if you just keep on abusing abilities and using them, you're not gonna be able to play optimally because you're gonna run out of soul. Remember, you start with a grade 0, 1, and 2 in your soul when you ride a grade 3, and then every time you ride a grade 3 after that, you get 1 more soul. But you're gonna run out, right? You're gonna run out. Like Lattice, this guy, you know, on ride, you know, you need a soul blast 1, right? So you're down to 2. And then what? You use a Cyrus, Soul Blast 2, okay, to call the top card of your deck. You've got no more soul left. Then you have this card and you can't use it, right? You can't get the power, you can't get the boost. So you have to realize how to use your soul and what abilities you want to skip out on. You want to plan for the future. You have a grade 3 in hand, that means you have extra soul to work with next turn, so you can spend all your soul now and still have 1 soul next turn to be able to use. And then, you know, if you misuse that, you will feel really bad. You will just not get the you will not be able to get the full power of your deck, or play the full power of your deck. So it's something that you have to learn, and resource management is very, 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 very important, right? In the future, we'll be playing other decks, and you'll be going, I have to manage not only my soul, but I have to manage my hand, I have to manage my counterblast as well. And that's the difference, right? When we see a lot of deck builds in the past, you see people running counter charges or a lot of cards that soul charge. If you're good at controlling your resources, you don't need to play those cards that are able to that you know, do those things that give you extra resource, because you're good at using the resource you have available to you to maximize the amount of plays you can do. So that slot fills up, or can be filled with something else, or something more useful, right? So that's something, one of the most important skills that you need to learn. But unfortunately, it's also one of the more boring skills and one of the most, like, hardest skills to master, because if you don't master that skill, this deck is probably going to feel a bit clunky. You know, it's going to feel a bit clunky, right? Lastly, we got the Brandt Gate deck, the Tomari Seto deck. It's called Aurora Valkyrie, and it features a lot of armored female units, right? So throws it out there, lots of female units, imprison your opponent's units. So this deck, well, the Stoicheia deck and the Brandt Gate deck are supposedly for more advanced players. I guess the Stoicheia one, it's true, because you do need kind of more foresight to be playing the deck, but don't, if you like Stoicheia, just buy it. But this Brandt Gate, definitely not, right? So these are the armored female units. They don't look very armored. They just look like police women. and you can see they're all in different colors. Cool. Here's the deck. This deck, we'll just jump to the deck list, right? So this deck features something really new, and that is this new set order. It is basically a field spell, like from other games, but this order sits on the field, and kind of, you can imprison your opponent's units by putting it under this card through other effects, and then your opponent has to pay resources to get them back, right? But apart from that, this deck is actually pretty easy to play. Right, it's pretty easy to play. You never have any resource issues because this order just automatically soul charges 3, and you don't really use that much counterblast anyway, so you don't have resource problems. It is kind of a deck more for playing against because of this Prism mechanic. You have to learn to play against Prism, because with the Aurora Snow, if they have 3 or more cards in their prison, they get an extra drive, which is very, very strong. But if you play against this deck, you have to figure out ways so that your opponent cannot imprison your units to reach that critical number of 3, and that will kind of teach you to play around other decks' win con, right? If you don't play around the prison win con, they will just automatically steamroll you repeatedly. But if you do, you have a very competitive game going on, and that's Vanguard, right? That's Vanguard. So this deck is kind of more for like showing you the cool new stuff in Overdress, but you will learn a lot more by playing against it. So it's not bad to actually give it to your friend, play against it, and go, okay, I have to play around things now. And then in the future, when you go to a different, bigger formats, or you go to a tournament, you can identify your opponent's win con and play around that as well, right? Play around that. So those are all 5 start decks. Hopefully that's kind of giving you an idea on what you can expect from each of them, what you will learn from each of them, and that will give you a better idea on, like, what you want to play first or what you want to just get. All right, so hopefully everyone has fun starting Vanguard, and these are definitely great value start decks that you can easily get into. And with Booster Pack 1, they'll get stronger, right? Each of these start decks will get support and will get stronger, as well as new archetypes in the future. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We do have a lot of new sponsors as well, so go check them out. We've got the affiliates in the description. We recently got BWC. Go check them out. They have sleeves, they've got everything. Avalon accessories as well, sending us some dice, so we'll show that off later. But if you want to support us, click out affiliate links when you want to buy stuff, even TCG Player as well, and that we'll be grateful. All right, we'll be grateful. So thanks for everything, guys. Hope this guy kind of helped you out a bit more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.